All right, here we go. I am
Woo-hoo.
live with my very first guest, Tiffany. I'm so excited to have you. I feel so honored that you're willing to lean into this with me and grow with me. Tiffany
It's
and I
a
met
pleasure.
sort of randomly on a Facebook forum about podcasting, and we just connected. So, welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh,
So
it's
excited for you.
Thank you. I'm excited for you. You have so much going on, so much moving, so many seeds planting, and it's just really wonderful to connect face to face and have this conversation. And we're just here to share our light authentically and hope that we inspire one person.
Yes.
So, as you know, if you listen to my podcast, we take a moment at the beginning to drop in and just ground our energy so that we can really connect to one another. And I get to do that with Tiffany here live, which feels really good. So, we'll take a moment to just come into the body. If it feels safe, to close the eyes and start rooting down wherever you are touching the ground or a chair, wherever the body is actually physically connected. Start to ground down into that space. And notice how the energy immediately settles when we pick a point that's ready to ground. We start to build this foundation and we start to sink into right here, right now. Nothing else matters. We are here, we are present, we are open. And from this space, we start to take a few deep breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. Beautiful, all the way in and all the way out. And taking a moment to scan the body. Notice where maybe you're holding on a little bit tighter than you would like to be. Notice where the breath is flowing freely. And notice if you can find a center line, a center balance of both the yin and the yang of the body, the in and the out, the contraction and the expansion, always working together, always working in divine timing, always working as we are guiding and trusting and listening. So within these few breaths, just scan the body, become really attached to the physical being that you are. And then allow the breath to help guide you a little bit deeper, noticing if there's a point on the body internally that you would like to connect to. Maybe it's the heart space. Maybe it's the lower chakras, the womb space. Maybe it's the voice or the crown of the head and the upper registers, wherever you feel guided to, just find that connection and breathe into it. Find a settling, find a peace of mind. And from this connection, finding a moment of gratitude for this space, for this time, for our ability to connect, for our ability to share, for our ability to grow. And if there's anything else that you need in this space, calling in your guides, your healed, helpful, wise ancestors, and just knowing that they are here to guide us, to hold us, and to help us when we ask for it. Help is always available. We just have to ask. And taking a few moments, noticing if there's any messages arising or any sensations or any emotions. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Feeling so much gratitude. And then coming back to the body, coming back to this space, gently bringing our eyes back into awareness. Coming back into this space together. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Lots of chills going on. How do you feel?
Mostly just peaceful.
Perfect. That's a great feeling. If I could walk around peaceful all the time, I definitely would.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah. Although the contrast is necessary for the growth.
So true. So true.
True. So we'll start off by just curious, what gives you the energy to keep growing?
Well, I would say sheer determination most days.
Nice.
Even if my body doesn't have the energy, do something. Get up, get dressed. If I get dressed and put shoes on, I'm going to do something. And
Mm.
that alone makes me feel good in the beginning of the day, even if I slept poorly or my body hurts.
Oh, I love that.
And then you put on music.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys all love music as much as I do, but it can influence my mood immediately.
Yeah.
So if I'm having a morning where I'm dragging on and I don't have energy, I put on pump it up music, and it's like a bliss playlist of all my happiest inspirational kind of songs. And I sing them, get them stuck in my head. So like one of my favorite ones right now is Unstoppable. And she's literally just singing, I'm unstoppable. And I'm a Porsche with no brakes, so just keep going, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Oh, I love that. As soon as you said that word, I got chills.
Yeah,
That's
it's kind of my anthem right now.
hell yeah. Love that. Do you dance around?
Yeah, I do. I do. And I put it on in the shower too, especially if nobody's home. I sing loud, dance in the shower. Sorry, giving everybody a visual. But I do dance all over the room, and I don't care what it looks like. There's nobody there to tease me about it. Yeah.
Love that. I mean, I think we forget to move this physical being, and that is such a processor of emotions, of energy. Like,
It
let it
is.
move, let it go, right? Like, we get so caught up in the doing. I love just that practice for you, and that's a part of your daily practice.
It really is. And oftentimes people, we just get stuck in our day to day, what we have to do that day, but we forget to stop and enjoy the experience. Dancing around your room is definitely fun.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when you let go of any judgment.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
I think we're the ones that judge ourselves the most oftentimes. And
yeah.
that's been a big thing to stop doing that. When you catch yourself saying something negative about yourself, got to stop it. Stop.
Mm,
Be like, no, no, I'm not doing that today. I'm awesome. I got this. We're
nice.
going to keep going.
Yeah. So you have some mantras that you go back to that are really core for you.
Well, I wouldn't say that I say the same ones every day. It's more like being your own cheerleader, really being your own best friend. How would you speak to your favorite friend, the
Mm,
person that you just love talking to the most? How would you speak to them? Would you tear them down? Would you tell them that they're not good enough? So why would you do that to yourself if you wouldn't say that to your best friend? You should be your own best friend. you
mm,
know do what you like. If you don't have enough time in the day for self-care, there are so many little things you can do. Put
mm.
your favorite music or podcast on while you're driving,
Yeah. I love that. That
or
is
dance in
self
the shower.
yeah, dance in the shower. Because you got to shower anyway.
Yeah, yeah, or eat something that you really like. There's
Hmm.
so many little things that you can do if you're struggling with um, taking that time for yourself.
Yeah.
Biggest thing that I had to learn recently, even, this is
Mm,
something I keep coming back to, is you have to kick everyone else out of your head. You
mm,
just have to. You can't let all those swirling of what that person thinks of you or what they said to you last week and it's still playing in your head. No, kick them out. Kick them out.
yeah.
The only opinion that matters is your own. So
Mhm.
what do you think of you?
Nice. I mean,
So
we
I
don't
just go back to that for the original question that you asked me. If I don't have energy, it's just inner power, resilience, strength, just going inside yourself digging for it, even on days when you don't have it. You
Yeah.
don't feel like you do.
Yeah. I love that you're saying that. I saw something the other day that said motivation comes from action.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes we wait for the motivation, but it's actually the action that gives it.
Yes.
Do you find that too? Once you get moving, then you're feeling more motivated.
Yeah, because I can sit there and think of all the wonderful ideas of things that I want to accomplish or do. But if I don't take any action towards those, it's all fluff. It's for nothing. You know, if I get up, I put my shoes on and I do even
Mm,
one thing towards my goals, I feel good. I've already conquered the day. And anything else that I do after that, that's the cherry on top. It's bonus, you know?
cool. Yeah. And on the opposite side of that, do you have a strong connection with your body where you allow it to rest as well when you know?
Yeah, I have days where I wake up and I have zero energy. I have been battling kind of an invisible illness. I call it that because I look perfectly fine, but lots of days my energy is not there and I'm not perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So on those days, I stay in bed.
Mm,
I wear really soft pajamas. I wrap myself in fuzzy blankets. I drink tea all day long
mm,
and I bounce back and forth. Do I feel like zoning out to a TV show, which sometimes I do if I need just that like mental break. I put on shows from the 90s, literally, like stuff I've already seen before, but it brings me comfort and kind of makes me feel like my mom is there because we used to watch it together. And so on days when I need extra comfort, I let myself have that or I watch an old movie. But on days when I'm really irritated that I don't have physical energy and I had so many things planned the night before, I had it all in my head, everything I wanted to do. And then I woke up and I literally can't move.
mm,
Literally, like physically, I just have nothing. So on those days when I'm aggravated that I wanted to get a bunch of stuff done, I do classes online. So if I stay in bed that day and I really wanted to accomplish something, I go online, I take a class. I also have been reading nonstop,
mm,
any topic that interests me.
mhm.
So I went down history for a while. I went down family ancestry, which is super fascinating. I've actually been really into that for like 20 years. And
Ooh.
then I went down astrology and psychology and um, got really, really obsessed with natal charts.
Ooh.
And it's like a window to your soul almost, which is kind of weird to say, but a lot of traits that I blamed myself for.
Mm,
I really blamed myself for some of the things that, according to this chart, I was born with this. So why am I blaming myself? you
yeah.
know, so I've been doing lots of classes and then natal charts for people and trying to help people really get to know themselves. I
Mm,
started with myself and my partner, and then I did all the kids.
mm,
Whoa, what an experience. I don't think we've come as far to say that I have kids yet. So I'll just say that I have a 20-year-old daughter, Riley, and a 13-year-old daughter, Keely, and a 11-year-old daughter, Cami. And then I have three bonus kids, um, Skylar, Jeremiah, and Ellie. So I did all of those 6 charts. And let me tell you, I learned a lot about my children.
yeah.
Personality traits, things that even I was frustrated with, like, oh, why does she get hung up on that? And it's right there in the chart that these are things that she's going to struggle with. It's like, okay, now that I'm identifying that these are things that we were born with, we can't really do anything about it, right? I mean, if we don't know, we're operating from a subconscious level. If we can go into those charts and identify who we are, what our strengths are, our obstacles, our spiritual gifts, maybe we
Mm,
can stop blaming ourselves for all the traits that we thought were our fault that maybe other people didn't like or, you know?
wow. Parenting by natal chart. I mean, that you could go massive with that. I mean, so many parents would have gives you a little bit of a blueprint, right? Of who
It
this person
does.
is and how they're made up and why they were where they were born in the I mean, maybe if you don't mind going into a little bit about natal chart and the basis of that, just like a more simple, if you can simplify it
I can, God,
a little
it's very
bit.
complex.
Yeah, it
But
is.
basically, at the exact moment you were born, so take your birth date, the birth time. This is very important too, because it can change every few minutes. And then the location on the planet that you were born. This will pinpoint where all of the planets were exactly when you were born. And it all holds meaning. So for me, I was born on August 8th. I'm a Leo. So my whole life, I knew I was a Leo. And when people would meet me and they'd ask me what my sign was, I would tell them I'm a Leo. And they're like, oh, that makes so much sense, because I'm just very outgoing. People have thought I was an extrovert my whole life, which I didn't realize I wasn't a full extrovert until recently. I'm actually half introvert. So most people thought I was extrovert as a child. And so when they hear Leo, I was on stage singing, confident, out there. They're like, oh yeah, you're such a Leo. But then when you look further into the chart, you have to have your birth time to get your ascendant.
Mhm.
Your sun is like what everybody sees, your personality. That's what they see outwardly. And then you go into your moon, and that's more like your hidden emotions. And your ascendant is a little bit more who you really are, like who. So I'm a Sagittarius ascendant, and I'm an Aries moon. So we have all three of the fire signs as my main. So yeah, I'm fiery. Definitely fiery.
Yeah.
Let's see, for perspective, my oldest daughter, Riley, is a Taurus. Now, she has kind of a unique chart. She has at least 5 Taurus placements, and I believe her ascendant is also Taurus. So she is really the bullheaded Taurus. And we did not, we had a hard time liking each other for a while during her teen years because our personalities are just so different. I'm outgoing, in your face. I like lots of color everywhere. And Riley likes things more calm and sophisticated, less. She calls me extra. I know I'm extra. I'm okay with that. I'm happy to be weird. But from growing up, she didn't like that I was extra. She's all earth. She's very earth sign, and I'm very much fire. So that's where we kind of didn't hit it off as well during those years. But now she moved out last December. We talk all the time, like 2 hours on the phone. And she really, we like each other now. So we just couldn't really live together. I think the house only has room for one queen, and she wanted to be the queen.
That makes sense.
So that made it hard.
Yeah.
Then if I moved on to Keely, Keely kind of has a unique situation because she had cancer when she was 3. She was born on 3/3/09. So we've got all these threes, okay, at 1:11 a.m. Now, I had her at home. I was in labor for 3 days. I'm not going to go into that story, but it was intense, and she was a large baby. So even her birth weight had 111, 11 pounds, 12 ounces.
She was 11 pounds. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah. So that was intense because I was at home, and I did have trained midwives, so nothing to be scared of. But let's see. So at 11 o'clock that day, my grandmother passed away. So there's a lot of really interesting circumstances around Keely's birth, the day she was born, and she is a Pisces. So both Keely and my younger daughter, Cammie, are both Pisces, which are water signs, very emotional. And I'm a fire sign, so I'm like all action, let's go do it. I have a lot of water in my chart too, so we're all emotional. But Keely, even though she's a Pisces, has a ton of Aquarius in her chart. She's more Aquarius than she really is Pisces. That was really interesting for me to find out, because all this time I only looked at the fact that she was a Pisces and that she's a water sign and they're more emotional. The Aquarius makes sense. She's very quirky. Every Aquarius I've ever met is unique. I've never met one Aquarius that was the same as another. They just have this uniqueness about them. Wow. Yeah. So she is very much an artist, and she's always up. She's got her hot glue gun in bed, and she's, making all these little art things, because we did a lot of art therapy in the hospital. So I think that was something that we wanted to touch on, was art therapy. Kind of saved my life when, no parent can really imagine being told that your child has cancer. That's
Mm.
one of those things that you literally think can't happen. Like,
Yeah.
I remember being a kid and going to Izzy's, and they have these little plaques up by the front register that you put quarters in. And there's a little bald kid there with childhood cancer. And I remember thinking, like, what's that? Like, really? Yeah, I
Mhm.
really I didn't know. And then years later, here I was being told that my child had cancer, and we're going to go live in the hospital for a while. So it kind of feels like a prison when you can't leave and your life stops. There were angels in the hospital.
Mm.
They were dedicated 3 times a week to bringing art supplies to every child in the cancer ward. And
Mm.
not all children there had cancer. They were blood disorders too.
Mm.
But they would bring clay stuff to mold. They'll sit and do it with the kids. They'll give you canvases to paint whatever you want. They give you jewelry making supplies. They had tons of different options. So during the times that we felt like in jail,
Mhm.
we did a lot of art. And I think that's why Keely still, I point upward because her room is upstairs. She's always up there with paint and making really creative projects and things. So she's definitely my more Aquarius child, even though she's a Pisces, for perspective on children with their zodiac.
Mm.
Um, which children weren't really my focal point. I really was hoping to work with maybe women or people who feel like they don't have a direction in their life and they're just floundering. They're at a
Mm.
job they hate. They don't really enjoy their lives. And I just see people all the time that are just so miserable. And that's really, I want to help those people. I want to read their natal chart and help them understand who they are, and stop blaming yourself for things that you were born with. You didn't even know.
Yeah. Really cool. And I love that it starts with you as the person, right? Like you understanding your natal chart. And then if you have children, opening up to that, because I think once you have an understanding of yourself on any level, on any layer, then we can we can relate it better, especially with people that is our immediate family, and to understand them more.
Yeah.
And how cool to have both. And I love that you have the ability to do that, and to like lean into that, and to help them see the struggles of their children because they understand and see the struggles in them, or see their life purpose and see what is in alignment, and lean into, instead of like, I feel like I need to do this, but it's not working. And maybe that natal chart can just shift you in a
Yeah.
direction that says, this is actually more in alignment with you. And how relieving.
Yes. And if you can identify what the child's strengths are, you
Mm.
can accentuate that instead of focusing on the things that drive you nuts. And
Yeah.
let's face it, kids can drive you nuts.
Yeah.
They do. It's a daily occurrence.
As a woman with 6.
There's currently 5 in my house, and when 4 o'clock rolls around, they all come in. It gets real loud.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. And that sparks an interest in me, because kids act out for a reason, or
They
kids
do.
hide into their shell for a reason. And so if maybe you can have a little bit of basis for this and say, do you need to be seen and heard in a different way? How can we lean towards that, knowing, okay, you're a Taurus with a Taurus rising, or what, whatever the case
Yeah.
may be, and go like, wow, so this feels difficult to you. How can we lean towards what is more natural?
Yeah, you pinpoint those key
Mm.
elements that they're just going to really excel at, and you keep pushing them in
Mm.
that direction.
Yeah.
know? Stop focusing on the behaviors that are driving you nuts and
Mhm.
get to the root of why they're having those
Mm.
behaviors. When you focus on the behaviors, you're going to think, oh, my kid's rotten and they're doing this and they're doing that. But if
Mhm.
you can get to the root of why they're doing it,
Mhm.
most of the time it's because they want attention. They want you to give them attention,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. In a session, so let's say that you have a client, would you make it a special session where you go through all of their information first and then you move on and could add the child in at that point? Or is that something you would work into it?
I would definitely want to start with the parent
Yeah.
because you have to know yourself first. Otherwise, you may be projecting things onto the child and you
Mm,
don't know you're doing it. So
mhm.
you have to get to know yourself first.
Yeah.
Get to know your own strengths, get to know your own obstacles, start
Mhm.
working on it, be real with yourself about it. You
Mhm.
know, there's not everything that you see in your natal chart is going to be positive. Sometimes I send an entire page of obstacles to people, but don't get hung up on the fact that there's an entire page of obstacles. You
Yeah.
just do one at a time and work on them
Yeah.
as you can. And
Mm,
then, yes, then you add in the child.
mm,
Bring the child in, not necessarily physically to the session, unless they're of an age where they're receptive to that, or you feel like it would benefit. That might be like an extra session to tack on later.
mhm,
Um, but more so to guide the parent to say, look, these are natural traits of your child.
mhm,
How can you build them up in a good way and help them just keep redirecting them away from the traits that are going to be the hardest, you know?
mhm.
If you can
Yeah.
help them while they're young, then maybe they won't have to struggle as much as I did. You know, I didn't always show outwardly that I struggled for the last 20 years, but you know, there was a lot of things that my parents didn't teach me, and I had to accept the fact that they were just children raising children. And
Mm,
as soon as I took that in and really saw my parents as they were like teenagers, they were like what, 20 something, they didn't know what they were doing either. You
mm,
know, but as children, we expect them to, just
yeah.
like doctors. We expect doctors are going to be able to give us correct answers to all of our questions. But when they tell you your child has cancer and you ask them really good questions and they tell you they don't know the answer,
Mm,
right at that moment, it's like, okay, take them off the pedestal. They're human beings. They only know what they know. They only know what they've been taught so far,
mm,
and science maybe hasn't discovered everything. Well, it's the same with parents. When you're a child, you idolize them and that's who you're supposed to learn from.
mm,
Well, maybe their parents didn't teach them either.
mm.
And they're just trying to figure it out. So as
Yeah.
soon as I figured out that my parents were human and were kids raising kids, that's
Mm,
when I forgave them for everything. All the things that I had held on to for so many years, I realized they didn't know. They
mm,
did not know. And if they did, they would have done better. They
mm,
and I'm not saying that my parents didn't do great because they're awesome people, but you
mhm.
know, every set of parents is going to have their strengths and shortcomings. And when you're looking at natal charts, I just want to say, beyond looking at yourself and looking at your child, take a look at your parents.
Mm. Juicy.
I learned so much about my mother.
Oh, I love that.
She's probably going to end up watching this. So, hi, mom.
Mine too. Hi, Mom.
My mom is a Gemini. And
Mm.
I did not understand for a very long time that Geminis are air signs. Okay,
Mhm.
I'm fire. Fire is action. I've
Mm.
got water kids and an earth kid. So earth is grounding and water is emotions. And
Mhm.
mom's all air. She's up in the air. You
Mhm.
know, there's a duality to Gemini that
Ah.
can sometimes surprise you. Like they have more than one personality, which is okay. We all kind of do.
Mhm.
Um, but I just didn't expect that about my mom. Like reading her chart helped me understand her a lot more. And my dad too. Oh my goodness. Now I
Yeah.
don't have my dad's birth time because to be honest, I'm too chicken to ask him for it. And there's a very good reason for that because it's against his religion.
Mm.
So I'm just going to say that. Both of my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses when I was a kid,
Mm.
and my dad and most of his family still are. And I have deep respect for their faith, and I don't want to be a stumbling block for anyone else's faith. But I studied as an adult, and actually, I studied all the world's religions in college, and I studied with Jehovah's Witnesses for a year and a half just to prove to myself that I did not believe my father's religion. Sorry, Dad.
Mhm.
I don't. So I'm chicken to ask him his birth time, and I could probably just order his birth certificate and be done with it, but that feels creepy to me too, so I haven't. But just looking at his chart, he's a Scorpio. And if you ever heard anything about Scorpios, they are more reserved from the water signs, but they have kind of a zinger, that the scorpion has. It's got that tail that's going to get you when you're not looking. And it's just so interesting. So I just want to say, encourage everyone that if you have not looked at your parents' charts, do it. Do it.
Cool.
It's
Really cool.
really cool.
Love that. I'm curious how that forgiveness felt for you, kind of just getting to this point where they were doing the best they could. I know that that was a huge relief for me, because when you first start doing childhood, when you start looking into childhood and what those triggers and traumas, and not necessarily big T trauma, but little things like I didn't feel paid attention to, and all of a sudden I've been holding on to it for 30 years. When I leaned into that and started understanding why that was still weighing me down today, and then I came full circle, like you're saying, they were doing the best that they could. That's all that we can do. And that forgiveness piece is so huge. So I'm curious how that resonated for you.
Well, being able to forgive my parents helped me forgive myself. I have not been a perfect parent, as none of us can say we have been. I've had a lot of people say they admired me and they thought I was a super mom, but I do not feel like a super mom. I feel imperfect, just like everyone else. And recognizing that my parents, the things that I was blaming them for, were not their fault any more than they were mine. And recognizing that helped me forgive myself for not being perfect in the ways that I wish I could be perfect. I wished that things could have been differently when we were going through the cancer journey. Riley had to live with other people for, I don't know, a long time. She was bouncing around from house to house of friends and staying with family. And I felt like I couldn't do anything about it. And people judged me for it. But really, what was I supposed to do? I couldn't leave the hospital. And she was a very headstrong child. She had all that Taurus earth. I mean, she was not going to listen to me, really. So all I could do was encourage her to make good choices. There's just so many times that I wished I could have done things differently. Cammie, for example, she was 18 months old when Keely was diagnosed with cancer. Cammie was 18 months. She was not talking yet. She was still nursing at night. I had a home birth with her too, and I nursed all my kids. So it was just a natural thing. And then poof, I was gone. Like for a month, I was just gone. No more nursing. She had moved in with my cousin who graciously took care of her. Thank you, Shauna. But I couldn't do anything about it. So forgiving my parents helped me forgive myself, because there literally was nothing else I could have done. All I could do was get up every day and try to have the best attitude that I could have and be there for the child that was in front of me that was horribly suffering, and try to make it happier for her. And that's just what we did. But yeah, there was a lot of times that I wished I could have been different or been more perfect, or, had my marriage last, but I had to accept the fact that that's just not how it went. It's just not how it went. You got to pick yourself up and keep going. And I think that's really what's carried me the most, is determination to keep going. I'm not going to let anybody stop me. No, there's too much. There's too much. I feel like there's too much that people need to hear. People need to hear that they can go through anything and still be okay. You just have to find it in here. You do. And being your own best friend is the first step in that.
Love that. The journey within.
Yeah. This last year, I feel like I have been going through this journey that I probably would have scoffed at my mother about. My mom's been talking about enlightenment for at least 10 years, maybe longer, probably longer. And I'm like, yeah, okay, Mom, enlightenment. Yeah. What does that even mean? Like, really, what does that mean? So over the last few years, she's followed all of these enlightened masters. They claim to be enlightened. She's traveled around the world to see them. She's gone to Portugal and saw Muji. You can see him on YouTube. She's gone to the Oneness University in India month-long trips there, came back as a oneness trainer, trained me. I've taken classes from the Oneness University as well, not in India, but here with Zoom from India. And a lot of the masters talk about learning to die before you die. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
You gotta die before you die? What does that even mean? Well, the last year, I feel like I've been starting to experience that. And I was just in awe, in awe. It's like the entirety of my life story over the last 4 decades. I'll just tell you, I just turned 40.
Yeah.
Over the last 4 decades, my life has been just crazy, crazy. Trauma after trauma, just so many big things have happened that you would not believe. You wouldn't believe most of them. But it's like it's all replaying in my head, like an audiobook, that's just, I can hear it all playing in my head of everything that's happened in my life. So I think that's getting towards what they're talking about. Learning to die before you die means going through your life review before you cross over. And, it doesn't matter what you believe in as far as God, or call it what you want, whatever makes sense for you, fine. But when you die, a lot of people talk about, doing kind of a life review where you see what you did in the life when you were here. Maybe there were things you wished you did differently, or maybe you loved every minute of it. But you can do that before you die. Kind of review. It's finding self-awareness, going back and really examining what did happen to me as a child. Because, you grow up, you turn 18, 20, whatever, you move out, you start your life, you might have kids, go to college, all of these things, but you're not really thinking about what happened to you as a kid necessarily. I mean, depends on what happened. If you can go back and really investigate, who was I as a kid? When I was the furthest back that you can remember yourself. Who were you? Who were you? Do you still feel like that person today? Go back, find out who you were, what your interests were, what really makes your eyes light up. So I've been reviewing all these things that have been going on, that have happened in my life, and I don't know, I feel like making different sense of it. Like looking at my childhood, and one example is I am afraid of dogs. I don't like to tell everybody they're afraid of dogs, but if I come over to your house and you have a dog, I'm probably going to stand in the doorway like this. Yeah. And for those of you who can't see us, just imagine me looking really uncomfortable and frozen. Now, I have no reason to be afraid of dogs. I had no clue why I was scared of dogs. Well, 6 months ago, I asked my mom, why am I scared of dogs? Like, what is the deal? I love animals. I do. And dogs love me. They come up to me. They want to sit with me. And I'm just like, yeah. She tells me, your brother, when you were 4, got bit in the face, or bit. I don't know if it was his face. It might've been his arm. Got bit by your grandparents' dog, and you witnessed this. So all this time, I've had this 4-year-old memory of myself watching my brother get bit by my grandparents' dog. And when dogs come near me, I think they're going to bite me. Now, I'm not consciously thinking this.
Yeah.
I just am afraid, and I couldn't figure out why. So go back, investigate yourself. Are the fears that you have now as an adult, are they yours? Were they projected onto you by someone that was raising you, or someone that was really influential in your life? Some of my fears might not even be mine. What about you? Have you looked at some of yours? What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think that going back into the childhood programming has been huge. And a couple years ago would have asked what that even means. It's
Yeah.
all pretty new to me, but the more I lean into it and the more I understand, there is definitely There's definitely pieces that I've held on to, and I love what you're saying that some of that emotion and some of that tension or some of that fear wasn't even mine to hold on to.
Yeah.
So once we see it and understand it, we then have a better opportunity to release it. I guess that's my question about them calling it a death. Are you leaning back into your past and having a death of that so that you can let it go?
What you're having is a death of the ego. You're having
Mm,
a death of the persona that you show to the world that might not be really who you are.
mm,
You're getting to your authentic place within yourself.
nice. I love that because there's so much that happens, and you may be able to confirm this, but what I've read is that your first 0 to 7 are your most programmable years, and
Mhm.
that kind of sets like your mainframe system, and then everything else is like software on top of that. So if we don't go back into those 7 years and try and understand as much as we can, then we just keep reliving the same patterns. And it's hard because for me, I don't have a ton of memories from super, super young. And the more I lean in, the more I open up, the more I nurture my inner child. I'll even have moments where I'm not even sure what happened, but I feel her and I just take a moment and like hold her in that space and let her know that she is safe and that it's okay. And I think that that could be such powerful work. And there doesn't have to be, for me, in my experience anyway, there doesn't have to be an exact thing. It's just a feeling, even.
Mhm. Yeah. You know, even if you don't have memories from that first 7 years, and
Mm.
I do, but I have worked to get those memories. I have gone around to family members and asked them what they remember. This could be aunts, uncles, cousins, your parents, anyone who's alive and witnessed your life as a child. Go back and ask them, what did you see?
Mm.
What was my personality like? What were my parents like? Um, what was our home situation like? There's so many questions that you can ask. If you don't remember, go back and ask them. And oftentimes, if they tell you memories, it's going to spark your own memories because they're in there, they're in your brain.
Mhm.
You just have to access them.
Mm.
I had a session about 10 years ago with a hypnotherapist, and she took me in to find like I think it was about 8 years old was the version of myself that I had contact with, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
In that moment, I felt ugly. Why did I feel ugly when I was 8 years old? So I had to like investigate, why did I not feel good enough? And what
Mm.
I got at that time was that my brothers would tease me a lot. I have 3 brothers. They definitely would, pick on me, tell me the boogeyman was chasing me home in the dark, and, typical brother stuff.
Mhm.
But I carried that with me because there was no one to tell me otherwise. So I carried that feeling that I was ugly. Well, I'm not an ugly woman. Why did I feel ugly? You
Mm.
know? So she had me take that 8-year-old version of myself in my mind, my eyes were closed, and pull her onto my lap and
Mm.
hold that little girl and tell her everything that she did not get to hear as a child.
Mm.
My mom was really ill back then, and my dad working and into whatever else. So I didn't feel like I had a lot of parental attention at that time.
Mm.
So now, when I am working on my shadow work, which is, along the lines of learning to die before you die, you're going into the shadows,
Mm.
into all those hidden parts of yourself. When I'm in there and I don't like what I see or I feel scared, just pull that little girl onto your lap and talk to her. It's part of being your own best friend. You can talk to that 8-year-old version of yourself, whether you remember her or not, and tell her what she needed to hear.
Mm. Wow, it's really powerful work.
It really is. It really is. But the thing that I didn't understand about enlightenment, it's not a destination. It's not
Mhm.
somewhere that you are traveling to get to, and every step you take is just to get to the enlightenment.
Mm.
It's a path that you walk. It's a journey that you keep walking every day. And it
Mm.
doesn't make you perfect. It doesn't make you immune to everything that's happening on this planet. It
Mm.
just makes you more self aware and more authentic and ready to not hide anymore, not hide behind a persona of what people want you to be. Just be
Mhm.
yourself, right?
Hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
And the more you love yourself and the better the connection you have to self, this best friend relationship, you can actually light your life from a new way, from the inside.
Yeah.
And what resonates with what you just said is facing these shadows. So the less shadows that we have within ourselves, which I don't believe we'll ever be completely free of, but the less we have, the more light and enlightened we will feel. So not
Yeah.
necessarily being at this like set place that you're going to arrive at, but it is this journey and what you're learning and experiencing along the way. It's really, it just like lights me up even thinking about it.
Yeah. It's stopping to smell the roses on the path, you
Mhm.
know? It's a
And
journey that you walk every day.
yeah. Yeah. And I think it's important to say that there will be the painful parts, right?
Yeah.
Going into the shadow, have a safe space, have a person that you have a connection with that you can just share with authentically and not even in a way where you're looking for advice or guidance, but just, hey, need to share and
Yeah.
allowing that so that you know that you have a place to go to, whether it's, a guide or a coach or just a friend or a journal. I think that there's a lot of ways
Yes.
that we help keep ourselves safe and know that the pain is necessary.
It really is, and that's the hard part to accept.
Yeah.
You're going through this enormous change. Change
Yeah.
is hard, change is scary,
Yeah.
and I think what really stops most of us is the fear. But
Mm,
let's just say it, fear is a liar. Fear's a liar. You're afraid of something that hasn't happened and maybe won't ever happen.
mm, yeah. Ooh, I actually have a sweatshirt that says that. Awesome.
Just like I have something on my wall in my bedroom from your first episode. Remember
No.
you were in Guatemala?
Yeah. Remind me what it was
You
or what
said
your poster says.
something about peace, and the painting on my wall, it basically says that peace is not just calmness, it's being in the midst of everything and still being at peace. Something
Okay.
like that. And you
Yeah.
talked about that in your first episode when you were recording from Guatemala, and yeah.
Because there was cannons going off while I was at this retreat in the middle of the jungle, thinking I was going to go find the destination of enlightenment, which doesn't exist. That was my lesson within it, that I can find peace even when there's explosions going on. That was
Yeah.
such a cool thing to hear from you. You're like, I have this written on my wall.
Yeah, and
A
the thing
great
that
reminder.
drew me to you that day was I didn't know you. I was just listening to your podcast. We met in that group.
Mhm.
There you were in Guatemala. I had been in Guatemala just like 3 years ago, and I could still just hear the monkeys in the trees, and
Yeah,
and there you were recording there, and it just took me back like I was there with you.
I love that.
And then you started saying exactly what was written on my wall, and I was like, okay, we're meant to be friends.
We got to chat. We got to chat. And I think that that is the beautiful part of doing the work is when you start clearing through the weeds, you start understanding your shadows, you start being more authentic, you start really communicating in a different way. All of a sudden, you have a more clear vessel and a clear channel that calls in connections like this, where I signed up for a Facebook group, not even really knowing what I was doing or getting into. And then I'm divinely connected with somebody that resonates and where we get to just share and speak openly and talk about our weirdo-ness or the what's considered woo-woo and just say, yeah, like if I have one other person that feels that, I'm all in.
Right, me too. Me too. Those are my favorite conversations.
Yeah, me too. And I just want to touch for a second on this concept of art that you have ingrained in you, because I think that for me, I'll speak for myself, that is one thing that my inner child is craving that I've pushed aside, telling myself I'm not a good artist or I don't know where to begin or I don't have the equipment. And all of a sudden I just bought paint. And sometimes, and trying to more often than not, just go in there and put something down on paper and forget about the end result or making it be perfect
Yes.
or pretty, because I am a recovering perfectionist. And so
Yes.
to allow it to just be messy. And here you are sitting in this beautiful art room that has all kinds of things going on. And I love that you have a space where you can tap into that. So, and that was so key in your daughter's healing and your connection with her, and that she's still utilizing that. So if there's anything you feel called to speak into with the
Well,
art piece.
yeah, on that note, I would like to tell you, I had all of those same doubts about my own artistic abilities.
Mm,
I did not think I was a good artist. As a child, I was primarily a singer. I sang on a lot of stages, and that was my main art form, was singing, publicly singing. And when I became an adult and had children, I just couldn't do that as much. And I felt like I lost a part of myself, that was my artistic outlet. And so I had to find other ones that I could excel at to replace that for the times when I couldn't have music as my therapy. That's when I started drawing and painting. And I would not say that I'm like a fantastic artist, painter. I'm an amateur, but you do not have to be good at art. You do not have to have a good finished product to benefit from the healing aspects of it. Because
mm,
when you are anxious, depressed, when you're struggling with those kinds of emotions, and you start even doodling, you're just scribbling. I love scribbling. Scribbling is
mhm,
really fun, just saying.
mm,
Scribbling and watching yourself scribble, even though it's not pretty,
mhm,
takes your brain out of that anxious center and moves you into a different part of your brain. So it literally shifts your brain. And when you're doing the art, your depression, anxiety, whatever it is you're dealing with, just lifts. Now, I
mm,
can't say that it's going to lift every time and it's going to completely take it away, but you are moving your brain into focusing on art, creativity,
mhm,
even if it's ugly.
mhm. Ugly, quote unquote, like
But your brain is
who?
receiving that as healing, because you're taking your focus from something ugly and something negative that you don't like. I don't like being anxious or depressed. Nobody
Mhm,
does, right? You're
mhm.
taking your brain out of that place and moving it into a different center where
Mhm.
you're only focused on art.
Wow. And it can be that simple.
It is that simple. Yeah.
Is simple.
Yeah.
Do you remember which side of our brain is that thrives on the art side? Is it left
I
or right?
want to say I want to say that it's the right side. The right side is your more creative center.
Mm.
I'm thinking I have books sitting right here. Whole brain.
I have books for this. I just am
No,
curious
whole
because,
brain
oh,
living.
wow,
She
cool.
talks about how we have four characters in our brain, and
Mm,
we have two in the left and two in the right. So
mhm,
really, you're just moving from one of your characters to the other character when you're doing the art,
mm.
and it takes you out of that suffering place.
Yeah. And so here you are, you have jewelry
hmm So
and
I am wearing one of my own pieces. Actually, these earrings too. I made these a long time ago, actually, but yeah, I wire wrap crystal jewelry. There's a lot in here.
yeah.
There's a lot of crystals in my whole house, but in this particular room, a lot of crystals everywhere. But I also paint, so I have an easel sitting right next to me. I was working on something that just said balance, and I don't like it, so I'm going to paint over the bottom part. But really, the whole point was that I wanted to look at balance on my wall,
Yeah.
because that's something that I learned. My soul path number, if you're into numerology,
Mhm,
along with the natal chart, all of that was one of the biggest things that I'm supposed to work on in this life, is
mhm,
balance between maybe my home life with my children and spouse, or work life, balancing those two,
mhm.
or balancing how much I do art versus chores. Balance could be anything, but
Yeah.
that's something that I read that I need to work on. So I wanted to put balance on the wall, so that when I sit in my meditation chair and
Mm.
I see it across the room, I'm reminded every day to find balance.
One word.
Yeah, just one. That's all I need. One word. And just remembering to find balance is enough to get me back on track.
Yeah. and reset. It's like a reset of the nervous system, just like we're talking with art. If you're just in a go, go, go state all the time, which so many of us are, this pressure to do all the time. And then you can tap into it with some scribbles and get into the other side of your brain and then find that balance within the system. Wow, just it can be that, it is that simple.
It is that
Like
simple.
we complicate it so much. Do you mind sharing about your meditative practice and what that looks like? If there is anything.
Most mornings, I don't do anything specific for my
Mhm.
meditations, but I do tend to spend the first hour of the day in quiet.
Mm,
Um, the room's still pretty dark for about the first hour.
mhm,
I sit quietly. Sometimes there aren't any thoughts coming in. Other times I'm lit up and inspired. It just depends. I wake up in my own timing.
mhm,
That's a gift that I give to myself, waking
mm,
up quietly every day. And it kind of puts you into that meditative state where you're practicing mindfulness. You
mhm,
are here in the now, in the current present moment. Nothing else matters right now. If
mm,
you're anxious, you're thinking about the future. That's fear of the future. If you're depressed, you're sad about the past. So just be in the now,
mm,
right now.
mhm,
So every day I start in the now. I'm
mm,
just here. I'm drinking my tea. Um, any reflective thoughts, maybe thinking about the dreams, if I remember my dreams, because I dream a lot. Um, and then
mhm,
I usually turn music on after I'm quiet for a while. Turn music on, or I start reading. I read a lot of articles. I try to keep up on what's happening in the world because I don't want to become complacent. I don't want to just be only looking at my own life. We have to be looking at the bigger picture. How many people are on this planet? How many wars are being fought right now? I
mhm,
pray for them. I do. I pray for the whole planet. I talk to my guides every morning, and I don't know that I could really put a label on what my guides are.
mm,
I was in a class years ago. It was one of the oneness classes, actually, and they told us to assign a name to God. Well, I didn't want to use the word God because to me that's a buzzword.
mhm,
And I grew up with that being shoved in my face.
mm,
And I don't mean that disrespectfully, but I didn't want to use the word God. So I didn't want to pray in that way. Like growing up, I felt like there was a little man in the sky that was judging us all, and that's what, I thought God was as a kid. Like, somebody up on a throne ruling us, angry at us. We did this. I don't know. So I
mhm,
felt like that was a buzzword for me. So in that class, I chose to call God my grandma. So I talked to my grandma who passed away the day Keatley was born. And that's kind of how I talk to my guides. Now, I don't know if that's really her, but that's what I call it. And that brings me comfort. And I think that's all that matters. So
mm,
I talk to them throughout the day, every day. And I
mm,
say them because I don't know if it's just one or if there's more. We're all connected energetically, really.
mhm,
But they give me messages. Sometimes I get song lyrics randomly in my head. And there's like, it's so specific, and it's like sometimes it just stops me in my tracks too. So you have to like pay attention to it. But
mm,
I talk to my guides every day and I give them permission to intervene in my life for my highest good. And I do this every day because they will not intervene. They won't get up in your business
mhm,
without your permission. They
mm,
won't. So you have to call them in every day. Thank them for being there with you.
mhm,
Ask them for what you want respectfully.
mhm,
Um, I say respectfully because in one of the oneness classes that I attended, the monks were actually making fun of how we pray. They were teasing us how we sit and we complain and we whine about what we don't have and blah, blah, blah. God, I wish I had this and I don't have that and blah, blah, blah. And they're kind of like teasing us, about it. And
mhm,
so that's why I say respectfully, because I choose to pray more in a manifestation type model, where if I want something, I'm envisioning it already happening to me, and I'm experiencing the joy and the bliss as if it's already happening. And
mm,
that's really how you call in those manifestations.
mhm.
So in that class, they said to assign a name to God. So I talked to my grandma, and that brings me comfort.
Oh. Do you feel like having that stillness practice opens up your channel more to hear them and to be guided?
Yeah, I absolutely. If you're not listening, you're
Mm,
not going to hear them. They're
mhm,
talking to you every day. You're getting signs all around us, and this is everyone.
mhm,
Synchronicities, coincidences, miracles.
mhm,
Miracles do still happen. It's just that our perception of what a miracle is a little bit different.
mm,
Like growing up as a kid, and we read the Bible a lot. There's burning bushes, there's entire cities being taken out by God's anger, there's all kinds of wrathful situations happening if you look at the Older Testament.
mhm, mhm,
That's not really what I think God is, and that's what
mm,
I don't think you need a label
mm,
to feel that energy around you.
mm.
You
Yeah.
just have to go inside yourself and connect. There's so many meditations on YouTube that you can do for free. Just
Mhm,
put one on, give it a try.
mhm.
You don't even have to have your eyes closed.
Yeah.
Some forms of meditation don't have your eyes closed, like doing the dishes. You're only doing the dishes and you're focused on that. You're not having a bunch of other thoughts coming in. Your hands are wet and you feel it. And you're just in the moment. That's meditation too. It's just
Mm,
adjusting what we think of it.
mm,
The miracles, that's what I was trying to touch on. And I think I got lost there. Miracles are still happening.
mm.
They happen every day. We just think God's not talking to us. He only talked to people in the Bible. Where's the burning bush? God
Mhm.
is talking to you. They
Mm,
are talking to you all the time. And I say they because I'm not sure, you know,
yeah.
I don't have all the answers. And I love knowing that I don't have all the answers. Because once we think we have all the answers, that's kind of where we end up the most lost.
Mhm. That feels very ego when you know
Yeah.
the answers.
Yeah.
The heart space and the intuitive space and the guide space. And that's all like being just very humble and open. I love your reflection on that and just knowing that these signs and these miracles and this guidance and mostly just staying present,
Yes.
the miracle. If you can
It
continue to
is.
stay
It
present,
is.
wow.
You want to hear a miracle that happened?
Yeah.
Okay. So in that same class that I was talking about, where I assigned God to grandma, and they started talking about how we pray and everything, they told us to pick something to pray for. Well,
Mm,
that particular weekend, it was right after Keely had had a bone marrow transplant and we had just gone back home. And it was like a miracle that I even got to go. We traveled to Idaho and went to this seminar.
mm,
And at that time, I had someone owed me money. And I found out that he was not going to pay me the money he owed me, which I needed for rent the following week. So it was $400. It wasn't a lot of money. But in that class, that's what I prayed for, was $400. Just $400,
mm,
literally. Okay. So that was like on a Saturday.
mhm,
Fast forward to Tuesday, and I knew this woman was going to come visit me. She had asked. She was a mother who, her daughter was a fifth grader at Keely's elementary school. And the whole school had been doing coins for Keely and fundraisers, trying to support us while she was going through that journey.
mm,
So this woman had contacted me and said, my daughter raised some money and we want to come bring it to you. So she
mm.
shows up on Tuesday and she sits down in my kitchen and she tells me that her daughter raised $400 for us. Exactly $400. I started crying. I was so overcome. One, that her kid had done that. And I'm going to tell you what her kid did because this is so cool. I wish I could remember like how to contact them. I don't.
Yeah.
And I feel bad about that, but it was just such a beautiful moment. So
Mm,
this little girl, this fifth grade girl, goes into her parents one night and she says, Mom, Dad, this little girl at my school, Keely, is fighting cancer and her family can't work. And she just starts talking about it. And she says, we have to do something. It's a
Mhm.
fifth grade girl. So she's what, 10, 9 or 10? We have to do something. What would happen if you and daddy, if this happened to us and you guys couldn't work, what would we do? This is what this little girl said to her parents. And so
Wow.
what does the mom do? The mom goes to her closet. She had a brand new Coach purse in her closet, which I assume was for her. She gave it to the daughter and she bought raffle tickets. And that little girl went around her neighborhood and sold exactly $400, the amount I prayed for, and raffled off that Coach purse for us.
Wow. I mean, so many layers to that. Just absolute
Yeah.
miracle.
I couldn't believe it.
Incredible.
I was stunned. Like I didn't even know what to say.
Yeah. And I love the piece of this story that really resonates is being specific with your prayer, right?
Yes.
Instead
Well,
of
and
just like, help us, give me money, to make it so special. And then, it's just that like that validation, that confirmation, like I'm being heard. And I'm sure that
yes.
you had so much gratitude and then you can give back in your own way. And that's how that miracle continues to
Yes.
happen and be passed along.
And by telling that miracle, when you share your miracles, they
Mhm,
multiply, not just for yourself, but for the people you're telling.
mhm.
So start looking for miracles in your life, everybody.
Yeah, and
Really.
how you can be a good person and continue to spread that, right? Like, if you're going around being an absolute butthead to everybody and just showing up in a way that's, like, not in an alignment and not as a good person, then miracles might not come into your life as expected, right? Don't you think that there's, like, a little bit of a balance there that
You
you
won't recognize them
oh,
when
you
they're there. Well, and if you're asking in a negative way,
mm,
I don't have this, I really want this, and you're just kind of whining and moaning, you're
mhm,
not going to get it because where you focus your energy is what you attract. So
mhm,
if you're focusing your energy on all the negative, that's what you're going to attract.
mm,
Shift to the positive and envision yourself getting what you want right
mm,
now.
mm,
Envision it in your mind, whether you can see it or not. Not everybody can see visions, but envision it in your mind and
mhm,
then let yourself feel the joy as if it's happening now.
mm.
Try it. What do you have to lose?
Yeah, and then take action. I think full circle.
That too.
That's a piece. We can't just lay in our bed eating bonbons and being like, "Okay."
I wish I won the lottery,
Yeah,
but
I
I never buy
know.
lottery tickets.
Exactly. Yeah. Wow. I think that that's such a perfect place to wrap everything up. It just feels like such a beautiful gift that you have given. I'm curious if out of all the things, if there's one thing that you would recommend for people to just keep leaning in and to growing. I know you've given so many nuggets, but is there anything just like on a growth basis?
Forgive yourselves.
Mm.
Forgive yourselves.
Mhm.
It's not your fault.
Wow.
It's not.
Wow.
The biggest gift that you can give yourselves in this life is to become self-aware and emotionally intelligent, figure out your life purpose and go for it and kick everyone else out of your head. Because you know what? If they're not saying positive, uplifting things, you don't need them in your head. Kick them out. Just
Yeah,
keep
such a
going.
yeah.
And when you fall off the horse, you just get back on. If you have
Mm,
a rough day and you didn't hit your goals that day, oh well.
mm,
Tomorrow's a new day. You
mm.
got this.
Amazing. And how can people find you? I'll put some show note links. Is there are we
Yeah, they
linking
can.
into your
I have a page on Facebook for my coaching practice, and you'll be able to find me there under my name. We'll put it in the links for the episode.
Mhm.
You can email me at lifecoachingwithtiffany@outlook.com.
Mm,
I'm about to put stuff up on Etsy for my coaching programs, but you can find me on Facebook for now.
yeah. And the coaching's a little bit new. I mean, as the business, like you've obviously been coaching through your whole life. It's very apparent.
Yes.
And this natal chart reading, she's recently done one for me. I look forward to sharing how that transpires because there's so much there and I get to lean into all of that. I'm really excited for that. So I would say if you have any interest and this part of the conversation has piqued you, just Wow. Understand that there's so many different modalities, and be open, try things on. I think we can get so stuck in the like, that sounds insane. I've never heard about it. I don't believe in it. Try it on. What do you have, like you're saying, what
You
do
have
you have
nothing
to,
to lose.
you have nothing to lose. What if you got a little bit of guidance, life changing?
Well, and what if it is just life changing?
What
You have
if?
nothing to lose by trying it, but you have everything to gain by getting to know yourself.
Mm, beautiful. Get to know yourself, lean in, forgiveness. Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much. This has been
Thank
such an
you.
honor to just have you. And I look forward to where this all goes for us. We'll be so
Yes,
connected.
absolutely.